Affectionate Indrik. 6 mana for a 4/4. Whenever Affectionate Indrik enters the battlefield, you may have it fight target creature you don't control. Yeah, the art on this card is disgusting. Look at that gross display of emotion. Bunch of adorable kitty cats meowing around its feet. Awful. I'm going to write an angry letter to Wizards about this. Yeah. Ugh. Anyway. Arboretum Elemental. 7 green, 7/5. Convoke. Hexproof. Unfollowed. Yeah. Yeah, I know that card's adorable. I'm actually getting some, we're looking at kitty cats this weekend. We filled out an application to adopt a couple cats. My my apartment complex lets us have 2. Anyway, we found one, a black and white cat. It's mostly black with a couple little white spots. It's got like half of a mustache and then like 2 different colored eyes. I'm really excited to check it out. He seems sweet. Anyway, back to the set review. Elemental, 9 mana for a 7/5. Convoke Hexproof. Yeah, so Siege Mastodon's in here, right? The fucking 7 mana 5/5 trample. So this is 9 mana for a 7/5 without trample. So it doesn't have the evasion built in, but Hexproof is a pretty obnoxious ability in terms of limited. I don't think this card's going to see constructed play at all. It's just a lot. It's just like not pushed for constructed. But man, what an obnoxious ability that Hexproof is. Not a, I don't think it's a like a high pickup or anything like that, but certainly good. The Hexproof ability gets much better in Sealed than Draft. Something to keep in mind because people have more removal spells. They have access to more removal spells in Sealed than they do in Draft. There's just more cards. Beast Whisperer, 4 mana for a 2/3. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. Nice. Yeah, I'll play this fucking card. Will I play it in Constructed? Probably not. 4 mana is a lot for a 2/3. But I'll play this fucking card. If there's a deck that just like has a pile of mana and wants a draw engine, this could fit, right? Don't need to draw that many cards. Body of Might, 6 mana to give 3 creatures, or the same creature 3 times, or 1 creature 2 times, and another creature once. +3/+3. Pretty sick. Pretty fucking sweet. This card's gonna murder some people. Could just 9 damage someone. It could also just like blow out a combat, mid-combat. Just all of your creatures just get to win. This card's great. It's a bomb. Limited bomb. 6 mana is probably a little bit too much for constructed. What the fuck is this? Is this just the search for 2 lands, 2 basic lands? I'm pretty sure it is. I'm pretty sure that's what this card is. That's what this card is. Circuitous Root. Search your library for 2 basic land cards and/or gate cards. Put them on the battlefield tapped and shuffle your library. Yeah. So there was a card that did this. There was a card that did this before where you could search your library for 2 basics and put them into play. I don't think gates are going to be constructed playable, even though you've got this card and like Civic Wayfinder can tutor for a gate now. I still don't think they're going to be constructed playable, not in a format with shocks and whatnot. But yeah. 4 mana, search your library for 2 basics, put them into play, tapped, has been constructed playable before. You just need to have something worth ramping into. Something worth fixing for. If I had to bet on whether or not this would see like a standard play, I would bet that it would. But I also wouldn't bet my house, right? Strictly better veggies. Yeah, explosive veggies, that was the card. Bant Fog could play gates. Why would Bant Fog want to, though? If you can go get 2 basics, why do you need to get dual lands? You know what I mean? Why wouldn't you just... what do you need to fix for? That's so color intensive that you need to grab two dual lands and then have these shitty come into play tapped lands instead of shocks the rest of the time. That deck probably doesn't exist. Anyway. Crushing Canopy, 3 mana. Obviously, gates are good and limited. Obviously, that aspect of the card matters in limited, but I don't see it mattering very much in constructed. The blue card that draws when you get gates. Yeah, again, I'm talking about the gate aspect of the card not mattering for constructed. I don't think the blue draw pile of cards for your gates. I don't think that card's constructed playable. I'm sorry, I don't think it is. I mean, maybe like just play all the gates deck is just insane, and you can just like have that sick draw engine. And it doesn't matter that all of your lands come to play tapped because your deck is just super good. I could be super wrong. Crushing Canopy, reprint, destroy a creature with flying, or an enchantment. Solid card. A lot of the removal in this format, a lot of the common removal is enchantment-based. Blue has an enchantment-based removal spell. Black does with the -2/-2, and then white's got a pacifism. So you can probably main deck Crushing Canopy. Between that and killing flyers, you can probably main deck it in this limited format. At least one, right? Devkarin Dissident. 2 mana for a 2/2. 5 mana gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Yeah, nice. I like having mana sinks for my shit in the late game. District Guide. Oh, this is that Civic Wayfinder I was talking about. Yeah, Civic Wayfinder, only you can also get a gate. Civic Wayfinder has seen like tons of constructed play. It probably will this time around as well. It's still, again, probably not tutoring for gates and constructed, but it doesn't need to. It's good enough. Generous Stray. 3 mana for 1/2. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Nice. I like it. I like everything about this. What a good boy. Like fucking, I like the dead lizard. I like the weird statues in the background. It reminds me of an area in God of War. I like the cat looking all very, very cat-like. Or like, I brought this for you. Why aren't you being appreciative? This is what I do. Not amazing stats, but it doesn't need amazing stats if you're drawing a card. I like this card a little bit better than the 2 mana 1/3 that where you would draw a card if it died. Getting your value up front is really nice. Helps you hit land drops. Helps your deck work. All right, Golgari Raiders. 4 mana. Haste Undergrowth. Best card all time. Clearly best card all time. All right, Golgari Raiders. Haste Undergrowth. Enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it for each creature card in your graveyard. And it's kind of a sweet payoff for the for all the surveillance in the format. All the Golgari enablers. Getting a bunch of shit in the graveyard. I think this card's good. Like, 3 cards, 3 creatures in the graveyard, and it's playable. But I think you can do better. I think the way that cards are costed in this format, I think it's possible to do much better. Just have this be consistently like a 4 mana 5/5 haste, or then in the late game you get like a 8/8 or a 9/9 haste. Just craziness. Anyway, Grappling Sundew. Oh, is this card playable and constructed? Man, if there's a, I mean, it's borderline. It's borderline good enough for standard constructed play. If there's there's multiple creatures right now that just mill yourself for like a decent amount. I think by the time you get to turn 4, you'd have this be pretty sick, pretty savage. All right, Grappling Sundew. 2 mana for an 0/4. Defender Reach. You don't think there's a ton of ways to get shit in the graveyard? Surveil is one of the key mechanics in the format. So I think your bug decks are gonna have a real easy time churning through and just putting a lot of creatures in the graveyard. Anyway, Sundew. Defender Reach. Gains indestructible until end of turn. Kind of a weird little blocker. I don't hate it. I like that it blocks flyers. Alright, Hatchery Spider. 7 mana, 5/7 Reach. Undergrowth. When you cast a spell, reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of creatures in your graveyard. You may put a green permanent card with converting cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Yeah, this card's just like always going to be good enough in limited, and it seems really hard to make it good enough in standard. It would almost have to be like a combo card, like tutoring for another important green spell in like a very specific sort of ramp deck. All right, Hitchclaw Recluse. 3 mana for 1/4 Reach. Yeah, this should probably be making your main deck most of the time in like all but like the more aggressive green decks that you get in this format. Hard to imagine a Golgari deck that won't want this card in the main. Real good for slowing down the game, buying you time to get your deck rolling. Ironshell Beetle, 2 mana for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. It's better Grizzly Bears, but it's not that much better than Grizzly Bears. You don't want to fill your whole deck up with Ironshell Beetles, but it's good filler. It's like quality filler, and it's pretty good in the format with Mentor, right? Like growing your Mentor creatures so they can keep growing the Beetle. Like 1/1 bodies are better in this format than usual too, because they're easy to mentor onto. So I think the mechanics within the format might favor Beetle. Crawl Foragers, 5 mana for a 4/4 Undergrowth. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life for each creature card in your graveyard. Sure. Yeah, solid. Earlier, I was looking at the Convoke creature that you would only gain like a flat 4 life, and I was like, why doesn't this gain you 1 life for each creature you control? And this seems a little bit more along the lines of what I was thinking. It gains you 1 life for each creature in your graveyard, which is what you're trying to do with the card. It's a little bit more straightforward. Crawl Harpooner, 2 mana for a 3/2 Reach Undergrowth. When it enters the battlefield, choose up to 1 target creature with flying you don't control. It's +X/+O until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard, and you can have it fight that creature. 2 mana for a 3/2. Not living through much fighting. Not living through much fighting. But it's also going to be killing some very large flyers. So it gives the Golgari deck another way to, you know, trade with your opponent's giant blue flying bullshit. It also, by fight trading, instead of just like fight value fighting, fight trading puts the Harpooner in the graveyard for future Undergrowth cards. Kind of cool. I mean, 2 mana for a 3/2 is like already fine. So any kind of ability on that is just gravy, just juicy. Might of the Masses, 1 mana instant, reprint. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature you control. Pretty good out of Selesnya with their token producers. I think that's where you're playing it. This is like your way of like converting a pile of 1/1s into a win. Nullhide Ferox, 2 green, 6/6 hexproof. You can't cast non-creature spells. So removal spells, pump spells, that sort of thing. Vehicles, all that stuff's kind of off. 2 mana, it loses all abilities until end of turn. Any player may activate this ability. And then if a spell or an ability opponent controls causes you to discard it, put it on the battlefield instead of putting it into your graveyard. Yeah, most cards that have the anti-discard clause, it comes up at some point. There's going to be some point where your opponent plays a discard spell. Your opponent, like I was talking earlier about how like Ravenous Rats might be standard playable. This is just like a random way to punish that sort of shit. And then the rest of the stats of the card are good too. The 4 mana for a 6/6 is sweet. The hexproof ability isn't like actual factual hexproof. They just like pay 2 mana to disregard it. So it's a lot. It's like Frost Titan's ability, right? If your opponent wants to target it with something, they have to pay 2 mana first, which is a better hexproof. It's like a relevant ability. It's certainly like anyone who's played against a Frost Titan, killing it. The ability certainly matters. It's certainly a relevant thing. Helps you time walk your opponent if they're actually going to get it off the board efficiently, but it's not as good as hexproof. Similarly, you can pay the ability if you wanted to play like a fight spell or a pump spell or something like that. If you drew one of your few non-creature spells, you're probably not playing this deck. You're probably not playing this card in a deck that has like a lot of non-creature spells, right? But if you draw your like 1 Branchwood Armor, then you'd be like, all right, whatever. I'll pay an extra 2 mana for Branchwood Armor. It's worth it. Yeah, I saw a lot of people talking about how they didn't think this card was like very good or whatever, but I think it's still fine. I think it's fine. It should see some play. All right, Pax Favor. 3 mana instant. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Man, that is a much worse Giant's Growth, isn't it? I guess you could play this when you're tapped out, right? You'd be like fully tapped out and have a combat drag. It's kind of filthy. Do I think Green Stompy should main deck the Nullhide Ferox? Yeah, probably, right? Probably. Gets you like halfway to Garna just by itself, right? Pax Favor is going to get you every round of the pre-release, right? Yeah, it's going to get me too. It's going to get me too. All right, pause for Reflection. It's a Fog with Convoke. God, that's gonna be a much more embarrassing card to lose to than Pax Favor. Pelt Collector, 1 mana for a 1/1. Whenever another creature you control enters the battlefield or dies, if that creature's power is greater than Pelt Collector's, put a 1/1 counter on it. And then if it has 3 or more 1/1 counters on it, it has Trample. So a lot of people were comparing this card to Experiment 1, and I think it compares favorably. I definitely used Experiment 1's regeneration ability. You remove 2 1/1 counters to regenerate it. I've definitely used that. The opponent like eventually has to just like point a removal spell at it. That said, Trample's a relevant ability too. It also enters the battlefield or dies. So if you play like 1 large creature and trade, then the Pelt Collector is getting +2/+2. And Golgari like wants to sacrifice some creatures for some effects. Yeah, I think this card's sweet. And I think it's going to see a lot of constructed play. At least as much constructed play as Experiment 1, right? That's true, it's also an early creature, which is good for Convoke. If you're doing the Selesnya thing. Experiment 2, yeah. I like it. All right, Portcullis Vine. Mine seems sweet. Golgari has other defenders at common. They give it value that it'll want to sacrifice. And then Celestia wants to have, again, just like Pellet Collector, it wants to have 1-drops to help pay for Convoke. So, yeah. And then it just cycles itself later. You don't even need other defenders. It makes use of your other defenders at a certain point, and then if you don't have other defenders, it can just sack itself. Card's sweet. Prey Upon, reprint, always good, always playable. Green, not exactly the color of removal, so more is nice. Siege Worm, 7 mana for a 5/5 trample with Convoke. I think Siege Worm's a hard card to evaluate. Even though it's a reprint, even though we've seen it before. The last time it was around, I think it was like a pretty fucking important card in that limited format. You really wanted to have like at least like 2 or 3 on the top end if you're doing the Convoke thing. But there were also a couple of other large Convokers, so sometimes you could get away without having any. Anyway, I'm not sure if it's in the like the top 5 commons of the format or what have you or not. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I know it's good, and it's like obviously good, and you're gonna play it every time. But is it a pack 1 pick 1 in the same pack as like a common removal spell? That's the point where it starts to get murkier for me. All right, Sprouting Renewal, 2 and a green, Convoke, choose 1, make it 2/2 with Vigilance, or destroy an artifact or enchantment. Nice. I like having random disenchant effects that aren't dead if your opponent doesn't have a thing to disenchant, you know? That's kind of what Renewal is. Earlier I was talking about how I think it was like called Crashing Vines. There was another card that could destroy enchantments, and I was saying that as a one-of, it's main deckable. I think Sprouting Renewal is real similar. A lot of the removal in this format is enchantment-based. A lot of the common removal spells. Is this or Crushing Canopy better? Are you talking about like you see them both in the same pack, and you just need to grab like one for your one for that flex utility slot in the main deck? I don't know. I don't really know. There are some good flyers in the format, right? But you also might just never face any. I would guess that Sprouting Renewal is the slightly better main deck card, and the Canopy is the slightly better sideboard card. But yeah. Urban Utopia, not a reprint, but similar. We got this card with like a single green once, and it was pretty fucking good. For 2 mana, in this format, for 2 mana, it might be okay. There's definitely going to be some 5-color Dirtle decks, and those decks are going to want this card. There's also some bombs that take like a lot of colored mana, and Utopia is going to help fix for those. It's so much better. It has Convoke. I don't think Convoke matters. When you're dealing with this like utility situational card, you kind of just need it to do its thing. Anyway, Vigor Spore Worm, 6 mana for a 6/4. Undergrowth. When it enters the battlefield, target creature gains Vigilance against +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. Yeah, so the stats, the basic stats, even if you don't consider the Undergrowth ability, 6 mana for a 6/4 that can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. Already pretty good for a Crawworm. You had the Undergrowth ability on, and you start dealing with a pretty zesty Golgari payoff at common. So not bad at all. Vivid Revival, 5 mana, return up to 3 target multicolored cards from your graveyard to your hand, exile Vivid Revival. This card is, I think this card's good and constructed. Not in like every constructed deck, obviously. It's like kind of a build around. But in the right control deck, I think there's enough constructed multicolored cards where Vivid Revival is going to see a little bit of play. You rebuy like your Teferi, your removal spell, whatever you want. I think that's good. It's a card for a 5-color green deck. Yeah. I think there will be that too. I think there will be 3 or 4 color value decks in this format. I think the gold cards are good enough to be worth rocking it. A Dirtily Sealed deck. Yep, really good in a Dirtily Sealed deck. Probably never going to be good enough in draft. You probably have to have a draft deck that looks like a Dirtily Sealed deck before you're starting to be interested in that. Reminds you of Seasons Past. Yeah. It's a little bit more situational than Seasons Past, but costing 5 instead of 6 is pretty real too. Worry Okapi, 3 mana for 3/2 Vigilance. Sure. I don't think a 3/2 body is amazing in this format. I think a lot of stuff's trading with it, and I don't think it interacts very favorably with a lot of it. So in terms of filler cards, I think it's a little bit less exciting than most cards in the format. Wild Ceratok looks solid. I think a 4/3 body is pretty real.